Title: I found a hidden room in my new apartment. The police told me to move out immediately. Before the story started, don't forget to click on subscribe and turn on your notification for our next true life horror story. The story begins. The door looked ordinary at first, just a plain white closet door at the end of the hallway. But when Jake pulled it open, the hinges made a deep metallic groan, the kind that didn't sound like it had been used in decades. Behind it wasn't the empty space they expected. Instead, a cold rush of air came out, and a faint blue light flickered from somewhere below. Inside the closet, there were stairs, concrete stairs, leading down. The smell was heavy, like rust and wet earth. When Emily shined her phone flashlight, they both saw it clearly. An iron door halfway down, bolted shut from the outside. Emily gasped and stepped back, covering her mouth. "Jake, what is that?" she whispered. Jake's hand was trembling, but curiosity pushed him to take another step closer. He reached for the handle, and the light flickered again, this time stronger, as if someone below had turned it on. That was when Emily grabbed his arm and shouted, "Don't open it!" The echo of her voice bounced through the narrow hallway, followed by a single, metallic click from behind the door. For a few seconds, they stood frozen. The only sound was their own breathing. Then, Jake slowly backed away and shut the closet door, pressing his palm against the handle like that could seal whatever was behind it. That was when the old floor vent at their feet gave off a soft hum, like something mechanical had just powered on below them. Emily whispered again, "Jake, what if someone's down there?" 2 weeks earlier, everything had seemed normal. The couple had been thrilled to move into their first home together, a small 1950s-style house in Jacksonville, Florida. The house had a brick porch, big windows, and the kind of neighborhood where kids rode bikes until dark. It had been listed as a fixer-upper, but Jake was handy, and Emily loved the vintage look. They'd bought it from an older woman who said she was moving to live closer to family. When they first toured the place, the closet door had been painted shut. The real estate agent even joked about how the previous owners must have been too lazy to repaint properly. Jake thought nothing of it until a few days after moving in. While Emily unpacked boxes, Jake started fixing small things around the house. Squeaky hinges, broken tiles, loose wiring. That's when he noticed a thin crack running vertically along the closet wall, just beside the door frame. Curiosity got the better of him. He fetched a small crowbar and pried the edges open just to see if there was water damage. Instead, a piece of drywall came loose, and behind it, solid iron. That made no sense in a 1950s Florida home. It wasn't hurricane-proofing, and it wasn't part of the foundation. Jake tapped on it, hollow. When he told Emily about it, she shrugged it off at first, saying maybe it was just old storage space. But the next day, he decided to dig deeper, literally. After scraping more of the wall, he uncovered a strange metallic latch, half covered by plaster. It was old but sturdy, like something from a bunker or safe room. The latch had been painted the same color as the wall, as if someone had tried to hide it. That's when Jake texted Emily, "You need to see this." They worked together for almost an hour, carefully chipping away the paint and plaster until the latch came loose. When Jake finally pulled it open, they expected to find shelves, or maybe insulation. Instead, there was a small staircase leading downward, rough concrete steps covered in dust. At the bottom, they could see part of a door made of solid iron, with a handle that looked almost industrial. Emily's first thought was that it might be a storm shelter, but Jake frowned, pointing out that the handle was on the outside, not the inside. Whoever was in there couldn't have opened this themselves. And worse, the door had a sliding lock, again on the outside. That detail sent a cold chill down Emily's spine. "Jake, this doesn't look like something good," she said softly. Over the next few days, they tried to learn more. They went through county records, old property deeds, and even online archives. The house had changed owners 6 times since 1958, but none of the previous listings ever mentioned a basement or additional room. One local forum showed a blurry photo of the same house from the early 1960s, taken by a neighbor. In the picture, a police car was parked in the driveway, and 2 men in suits were standing near the front door. The caption under the image read, "Strange night on Maple Drive." When Jake asked the realtor about it, she just shrugged. "Old houses have secrets," she said with a nervous laugh. But Jake could tell she knew more than she was saying. That night, they heard something new, soft footsteps echoing beneath the floorboards. It wasn't the creak of old wood or plumbing. It sounded like someone pacing slowly, right under their feet. Emily froze. "Jake," she whispered, "you locked that door again, right?" Jake nodded, but his eyes were on the hallway. The closet door, the one leading to the hidden stairs, was slightly open again. And this time, the faint blue light was shining from below. The blue light spilled through the crack of the closet door, faint but steady now, painting the hallway in a cold, eerie glow. Jake could feel his pulse in his throat as he reached for the handle. It was slightly warm, too warm for a door that led to a space underground. Emily stood behind him, clutching her phone, the flashlight shaking in her hand. "Don't," she whispered, but Jake had already turned the knob. The hinges moaned again, and the smell hit them, old iron, mildew, and something, sharp like burnt wires. The light was coming from below, not from a bulb, but a small portable lamp flickering at the bottom of the stairs. It shouldn't have been there. Jake was sure there hadn't been any light before. He had shut that door. He had locked it. He started down the steps, slow, one hand on the wall, feeling the rough concrete under his palm. Emily stayed at the top, her breath quick and shallow. When he reached the bottom, he saw the iron door again, slightly ajar this time, the padlock hanging open. "Someone's been here," Jake muttered. The inside of the hidden room was smaller than he expected, barely big enough for two people to stand side by side. The walls were concrete, unpainted, but lined with rusted nails and old wiring. On the floor lay an old mattress, flattened and stained, and beside it, a small drain in the concrete. Above the drain, faint brown marks spidered outward, like something had once leaked or spilled there long ago. On one wall, there were deep scratches, horizontal lines, uneven and desperate. Jake stepped closer, brushing the dust aside to get a better look. Emily's voice echoed from the stairs. "What is it?" He hesitated. "I think..." He swallowed. "I think someone was locked in here." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "Jake, let's get out, please." But then he noticed something else. A small wooden crate shoved into the corner. It was covered with dust and spider webs, but it wasn't empty. Inside were a few objects, a folded piece of paper, a small brass key, and a child's shoe, no bigger than the size of Emily's palm. The paper was old and brittle, but the writing was still visible. It read, in faded blue ink, "If anyone finds this, don't stay in this house. It doesn't forget." Jake froze. For the first time, the air felt heavier, almost pressing down on his shoulders. Emily turned and bolted up the stairs, muttering that shh, he was calling the police. Jake followed, closing the iron door behind him, but leaving the note in his pocket. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, two officers stepped cautiously into the house. They asked routine questions: when the room was found, whether they'd touched anything, whether there were signs of forced entry. Jake showed them the note and the crate, but when they went down to see for themselves, the light was gone. The lamp that had been glowing was cold and dead. Even stranger, the iron door was sealed shut again, the padlock now closed tight. "Looks like an old storage space," one of the officers said, though his voice didn't sound convinced. "These old houses have all kinds of weird rooms. Might have been a bomb shelter." "But there's a drain in the floor," Emily said, her voice trembling, "and it locks from the outside." The officer glanced at her, then exchanged a look with his partner. "We'll file a report," he said finally, "but you should probably stay somewhere else for the night, just in case." That "just in case" kept echoing in Emily's mind. They packed a few bags and left for a motel across town. Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the note. He had left it on the nightstand by mistake, and part of him wanted to drive back just to make sure it was still there. By morning, they returned home. The air inside felt wrong, thick, stale, and colder than before. The power had gone out sometime during the night, and the kitchen clock had stopped at 3:12 a.m. While Emily checked the circuit breaker, Jake went straight to the hallway. The closet door was closed. He placed his ear against it and listened. Nothing. No humming, no footsteps, no light. He turned the knob, still unlocked. When he opened it, the stairs were there, but the iron door at the bottom was gone. In its place was a smooth concrete wall, freshly sealed, like it had never been there at all. He called for Emily. She came running and stopped cold when she saw it. "Jake, you said there was a door." "There was," he said, his voice cracking. "It was right there." They called the police again. The same officers returned, puzzled but calm. One of them ran his flashlight over the new wall and said, "Looks like it's been sealed for years. There's no sign anyone's done work here recently." Jake stared at him, speechless. You saw it yesterday. You saw the door. The officer didn't answer. He just took a slow step back, studying the wall again. Finally, he said quietly, "You two should leave the house for a while, maybe a week or two." Emily frowned. "Why? What's going on?" The officer hesitated. "Off the record, this isn't the first report we've had from this property." He lowered his voice. "People who lived here before you said they heard noises under the floor. One family even tried to fill in a space below the house, but they moved out before finishing. Said it kept reopening." Emily's face drained of color. Jake felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What do you mean, reopening?" he asked. The officer looked him dead in the eye. "I mean, every time someone seals it, that room comes back." The house fell silent. Emily backed away slowly, her eyes wide. Jake took one last look at the smooth concrete wall, certain he could hear something faint, something deep behind it, a dull rhythmic sound. It was breathing. And then, from behind the wall, came a soft knock. The sound was soft at first, like a knuckle brushing against stone. Then it came again, louder this time. 3 slow, hollow knocks that echoed through the walls and into Jake's chest. Emily screamed and stumbled back, nearly tripping over a box. Jake stood frozen, his eyes locked on the concrete wall where the door used to be. "Jake," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "Someone's in there." He wanted to say no, that it was impossible, but his throat was dry. "We sealed it," he said, barely above a whisper. "It's concrete. There's no way." The knocks came again, slower this time, as if whoever, or whatever, was behind that wall knew they were listening. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. The younger one took a hesitant step toward the wall and pressed his flashlight against it. "Hello?" he called, his voice steady but tight. No answer. He tapped the wall with the handle of his flashlight. The sound that came back wasn't solid, it was hollow. Jake's heart dropped. "You said it was sealed!" he shouted. The older officer shook his head. "I don't know what to tell you. Yesterday this looked like a storage space. Now it sounds empty again." Emily was crying quietly now, gripping Jake's arm. "We have to go," she said. "Please, Jake. I don't want to stay here another minute." But Jake couldn't move. He felt drawn to it, like the wall was calling to him. He crouched, running his hand over the concrete. It was cool and damp, but near the bottom, he felt a small draft. Air was coming through. There was space behind it. He pressed harder, and a faint vibration traveled up his palm, like something breathing beneath the surface. The older officer pulled him back. "Sir, step away. Now." That was when the power flickered. The lights blinked once, twice, then went out completely, plunging the house into total darkness. Emily screamed again. The only light left was the officer's flashlight, shaking slightly in his hand. The beam cut across the wall, and that's when they saw it. A single dark line was forming down the center of the concrete. It wasn't there before. It spread slowly, widening like a crack in glass. Dust fell from the wall as the line grew longer. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. "It's opening!" The officers backed away, weapons drawn now out of instinct, though none of them could explain what they were facing. Emily grabbed her phone and tried to call for help, but there was no signal. The line on the wall split further until a section of concrete slid inward with a low, grinding sound, revealing a narrow gap, a doorway just big enough for someone. The next morning, they decided to move out. They packed what they could and left the house keys on the counter. The real estate agent didn't seem surprised when Jake called to tell her. "You're not the first ones," she said quietly. "Most people don't stay long. Some houses. They remember." Before leaving, Jake went back one last time to grab a few tools from the garage. The house was silent. Dust motes floated in the sunlight, streaming through the windows. Everything looked normal. Peaceful, even. But as he passed the hallway, he noticed something that made him stop cold. The closet door was open again, and from the bottom of the stairs, faint and distant, came the sound of a child's laughter. Jake's phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor. The laughter faded slowly, replaced by the low hum of electricity flickering back to life. The light in the hallway turned blue once more. He stepped back toward the front door, whispering to himself, "We're leaving. We're done." As he turned to leave, a small folded piece of paper fluttered out of the hallway and landed at his feet. It was the same note he'd found days before, but this time there was an extra line written in fresh ink. "You can move out, but it won't forget." Jake didn't look back. He grabbed the keys, slammed the door, and drove away. The house on Maple Drive still stands today, sold again to another young couple who saw the beautiful vintage home listed at a great price. And in every photo online, just behind the corner of the hallway, there's always that same faint blue glow.